For lack of a better term, I call it a feminine practice. Now, to me, the distinction I make is that a masculine practice is something that challenges us. It might be Wim Hof breathing. It might be an ego eradicator. It might be an iron shirt practice, qi gong. It might be going to the gym, right? And pushing some iron around. So anything that I believe challenges us, that requires us to stay in our body, stay focused, bring extra energy to do, I consider those masculine practices. They prepare us to deal with challenge in life. For me, feminine practice is anything that fills us, anything that lets us relax, be at peace, open our senses and feel sight, sound, touch, taste, smell, being in nature, being connected to another person, being touched, listening to music, a glass of wine, just breathing easy, yoga perhaps, nice easy stretch. To me, those are feminine practices. They get us in our body, they help us feel our senses. And what I experience for most of us men, most of us spend much of our day and night out of our bodies, in our head, somewhere else. Over there, in the past, in the future, we're not in our bodies, we're not feeling. And because of this, because we don't do feminine practice, because we don't nurture our bodies, because we don't open our senses, we're often a pretty empty bucket. And we usually get depleted and burned out and stressed easily. And these practices, feminine type practices, whether you just meditate for 15 minutes or take a nice leisurely walk outdoors or just sit in the park or just look at clouds or listen to music or move your body easily and gently. All of these things help fill our bucket. It's a way we husband our feminine. Then we don't go chasing the feminine, which is a big empty bucket, to come fill us. And that's why women often aren't drawn to us because we're that empty bucket wanting them to approve of us, desire us, fill us. But those are all feminine traits. And if we're filling our own bucket, husbanding our own feminine, we're less likely to chase what I call that junk food feminine. And it might just be porn, television, junk food, wasting time, surfing the internet. We'll actually enjoy genuine feminine filling. Okay, so a little bit more here in the chat box. What are some feminine practices? What are some ways you currently fill your own bucket? Let's share a few of these so other inmates can actually see some of the things we do to be in our bodies. For lack of a better term, I call it a feminine practice. Now, to me, the distinction I make is that a masculine practice is something that challenges us. It might be Wim Hof breathing. It might be an ego eradicator. It might be an iron shirt practice, qi gong. It might be going to the gym, right? And pushing some iron around. So anything that I believe challenges us, that requires us to stay in our body, stay focused, bring extra energy to do, I consider those masculine practices. They prepare us to deal with challenge in life. For me, feminine practice is anything that fills us, anything that lets us relax, be at peace, open our senses and feel sight, sound, touch, taste, smell, being in nature, being connected to another person, being touched, listening to music, a glass of wine, just breathing easy, yoga perhaps, nice easy stretch. To me, those are feminine practices. They get us in our body, they help us feel our senses. And what I experience for most of us men, most of us spend much of our day and night out of our bodies, in our head, somewhere else. Over there, in the past, in the future, we're not in our bodies, we're not feeling. And because of this, because we don't do feminine practice, because we don't nurture our bodies, because we don't open our senses, we're often a pretty empty bucket. And we usually get depleted and burned out and stressed easily. And these practices, feminine type practices, whether you just meditate for 15 minutes or take a nice leisurely walk outdoors, or just sit in the park, or just look at clouds, or listen to music, or move your body easily and gently. All of these things help fill our bucket. It's a way we husband our feminine. Then we don't go chasing the feminine, which is a big empty bucket, to come fill us. And that's why women often aren't drawn to us, because we're that empty bucket wanting them to approve of us, desire us, fill us. But those are all feminine traits. And if we're filling our own bucket, husbanding our own feminine, we're less likely to chase what I call that junk food feminine. And that might just be porn, television, junk food, wasting time, surfing the internet. We'll actually enjoy genuine feminine filling. Okay, so a little bit more here in the chat box. What are some feminine practices? What are some ways you currently fill your own bucket? Let's share a few of these so other inmates can actually see some of the things we do to be in our bodies. Walking in the woods, listening to music, walk in the park, sitting in the hot tub, looking at the stars. Oh man, that's pure bliss right there. Hot tub looking at stars. Meditation, music, sauna, long hot bath, tango. That's a good one. Taking walks on the weekend, yoga and salsa class. Stretching, yeah. Stretching's a great one. Going for a walk, listening to music, breathing, breath work, meditation, walking by the lake while listening to music, sitting in the sun, barbecue. Yeah, I'll go for that one. Walking the German Shepherd. Yeah, for me, my daily walk with Nala and my wife, that's pure just filling my feminine bucket. Um, Playing with a kid, rom-coms. I won't read the name of who posted that, but he's not shy. I enjoy doing power yoga and meditation in the morning, driving my convertible through the countryside. Yeah, how nice. Getting my head shaved. All right. One last thing for posting in the chat. Let's just post something you could do more often to fill your bucket. Maybe even say something you will do this evening or tomorrow to just fill your bucket, to just feel good. Let's make a commitment of sorts. Play more guitar. Just sit there and do nothing. I love just sitting there and doing nothing. Meditation. PK is going to play the piano. Play with cats. Yeah. Go to bed earlier as a habit. Oh, me, I love sleeping. Walk on the beach. Yeah, perfect. Meditate. Meditate, play guitar and sing. Go for a walk or ride the bicycle. Eat more fruit. Lovely. Meditation, gratitude practice. I'm glad someone said that. That's one of my favorites is just practice being grateful in the moment. Watch a movie since he never does it, allowing himself to relax. Okay, fantastic. Thank you guys for doing this. I know for us men, sometimes doing what we just did, pretty uncomfortable. Getting on the floor, moving around. That's why I have you turn your camera off. It doesn't matter. But yeah, just getting comfortable being in our bodies and nurturing ourselves. Thing. I don't think the thing you did is the issue. And that's actually not unusual. I think a lot of us, it's such a long time companion. It just feels like part of who we are. It just feels familiar to keep ruminating, rehearsing, regressing back into that thing and feeling bad. And as you said, it's prevented you from doing a lot of things, out of this fear, well, they're going to find this thing out, or I'm going to tell them and they're going to leave me. So in some ways, the actual event is almost meaningless. The event is meaningless. The shame is everything. The event is in the past, 20 years ago. The shame, though, you've carried with you for the last 20 years. I've given this illustration before, but I've heard the story of two Buddhist monks walking along on a journey. And they
Hmm.
come to a river, and there's a woman standing by the side of the river. And the woman asks, will you help me across the river? And one of the monks picks the woman up on his back and wades across the river and sets her down on the other side. And the two monks continue on walking along the river. Several hours later, the other monk says, I have to say this. I can't believe you picked that woman up and carried her on your back. You know our vows that we will not touch a woman, we stay pure. How could you have done such a thing? And the first monk said, I carried that woman for 5 minutes. You've been carrying her for several hours. The real thing I hear here is not the actual event, the carrying the woman across the water. That came and went. It was done. Carrying the shame, the other monk, for hours or however long, that's you. You've been
Mm,
carrying that shame. Now, I'm kind of the way I'm trained as a therapist is to kind of look at this and maybe even kind of look at it from a perspective of existential kink. And I'm going to recommend that book to you if you haven't read it. Must serve some purpose, or we wouldn't be carrying it with us. So either
right.
just because it feels familiar, we can keep hating on ourselves, and something about that feels familiar. It keeps us from getting close to people. I'll give you an example. I had a client many, many years ago, and he was addicted to pornography. And it effectively kept him from ever getting into a relationship because either he would either have to quit it to get in the relationship or live in this constant fear of being found out or having to tell his partner. And you know what? It served a purpose. It prevented him from ever having to get into a relationship. And I know a lot of men actually who look at pornography and they think, well, I'll quit when I get in a relationship. But they never get into the relationship, or if they do, they don't quit. They just stay in a state of shame and anxiety. Because I believe, for example, most sexual sex addiction, like porn especially, is a shame addiction. It's a really effective way to feel bad about yourself because that feels normal and it keeps you small, it keeps you restricted, it keeps you isolated and safe from getting close to other people. You don't live up to your full potential, and you can blame it on, in your case, that thing 20 years ago. Or someone else
Mm,
might blame it on the porn, or somebody else might blame it on the woman they carried across the river on their back. Right? We've all
right.
done stupid stuff. We've all made mistakes. I write books about it when I make mistakes, but it still takes me a while to work through the shame, and writing the book about it is part of my therapeutic process. But every major thing I've done that I felt shame about, I've also spent time in 12-step groups, men's groups, therapists, and then now to the world, just telling what it is, what I feel shame about. And so I'm going to encourage you, find safe places and safe people and let people give you accurate feedback that you're not a bad person, you're not evil, you're not broken. And
Hmm.
begin getting the feedback that you are a lovable, perfectly imperfect person. No, we all make mistakes. We all fall short of the glory of God, so it is said. It's your ego that keeps you stuck in the I'm so bad place. Like I'm so bad than it, I'm so much worse than everybody else because of a thing I did at 19. Honestly, I'm not a big fan of goals. I'm really not. I know a lot of people are. I know if you listen to, most self-help stuff, there's a lot about goals in there. I I've set very few goals in my life. And most that I do set, I either sabotage myself before I get to them, or once I reach them, I revert back. Um, the only time I see personally, I'm not saying they're wrong, but for me, I know you're kind of squinting like goals. You don't set goals? No, I don't. I didn't set goals to get a doctorate. I didn't set goals to write a book. I didn't. I kind of set a goal. I created an intention to move to Mexico. Um, but it wasn't like I got to move to Mexico by this time and I got to do it this way. I tend to just go in the direction of either whatever I struggle with or whatever interests me. And that's tend to where I go. And that tends to, take me some pretty interesting places. And so to me, I call goal setting outside in motivation. If you were really motivated to do something, you wouldn't fucking need a goal. You would just go do it. We need goals only when we're not motivated to do something, or somebody else is setting the goal for us, or we don't think we can get there without a goal. But if you're motivated to get in shape, go get in shape. Now, a short-term goal, I think, can get you started and get you moving. But I think if you have to live your whole life setting goals to get you to the next thing, I think that's the problematic part. And the goal actually does become the attachment to outcome. And that's why Buddha says we suffer once we get attached to an outcome. Like, say, I want that woman to like me. That's your goal. Or, I want to lose 90 pounds. That's a fine goal, but most people lose 90 pounds, gain it back. So there's got to be something more effective than goal setting. Again, they can be good short term to get you moving, but if your whole life is dependent on goal setting, I think you're probably, maybe you really don't want that thing. If you want something, don't you go for it? I think so. And if you're not attached to a specific outcome, you won't suffer. So for me, I got a nutrition coach a year ago. I've been working with her for a year now. And I told her when I got the coach, I said, I don't want to count macros. I don't want to count calories. Just give me, some menus. Give me a diet I can live by, and I'll just follow it. She said, we're not going to do it that way. You're going to count macros. Now, in all of this, I've not set one goal, and I've lost several kilos. Now, I just wanted to eat healthy and take care of my body. And so I got a coach to help me do it and keep me on track. Now, I've struggled to get into the gym regularly. Even when I set goals, I struggle to get to the gym. But I know I need to work my muscles more. I need to lift weights. It, you lose muscle mass as you get older. So I told my wife, find a trainer for me. She's a gym rat. She's in the gym all the time. I've got a gym in my house that I use once a week, maybe. So my wife found a trainer. When I get back home in a week, the trainer's going to start coming to my house. I don't know how many times a week. We'll figure that out. So I don't even have to set a goal. I just have to have a trainer come at 11 o'clock on Monday, and I've just got to show up at the gym. And then I'll let the trainer lead me through a workout that will be beneficial to my body. Now, I can set goals and say, I want to be this weight, have this much muscle mass, this percentage of body fat, do all of this by this age, and, do this much cardio. But I won't do it. So I would rather just find ways to do the things that are good for me in the ways that I'm most likely to be consistent with it. Now, that's just me. Some people are really a lot better with the goals. You might have the David Goggins or the Alex Hormozis of the world that, would want you setting all kinds of goals to move you forward. But you know what? I listen to most of those motivational people, and I'm not inspired by them. I don't think most of them are happy in their own skin. I think most of them are running away from demons, and they keep chasing goals to get them away from their demons. So if you want to make money, go make money. If you want to get in shape, go get in shape. If you want to date women, go start talking to women. And do the thing that you want rather than chase a goal that's not even really the thing that you want. It's an outside in, kickstart of some sort. Again, if goals work for you, great. But that's why I have no conflict with the issue of goal setting and attachment to outcome. I'd rather be outcome agnostic than set a goal. So that's me. Um, I don't know if that was what you were asking for, or if that helps in any way. But again, I'm just not a big fan of goal setting. You are fine the way you are. Kind of going back to the very first question of our fellow inmate carrying a lot of shame for an act that he did at 19. Okay. As you listen to him talk, did you have negative thoughts about him or think that he was a bad person because he did
No,
something? No. So you're looking at him. This guy's riddled with shame for 20 years and thinks he's a terrible person. And you're going, you probably just had empathy for him. You're going, what could you have done that you feel so bad for? And you didn't judge him. Okay.
right,
So probably you have more compassion for him as a perfectly imperfect person. He's okay.
right.
Then he has for himself, and then that you probably have for yourself. Oh, I shouldn't be that way. Or that makes me, you fill in the blank, bad, evil, lazy, fat, stupid, whatever, right? That being hard on ourselves doesn't solve anything. It probably does drive us. I've got to set goals to get better, right? And the thing is, I emphasize the mantra is the tagline is not about becoming better people. It's just about doing better in our daily life so that we can have a better life, so that we can bless the world and bless the people around us, so we can feel more satisfied with who we are. But here's the thing, there's a paradox.
Yeah.
Most of us don't really do better from a place of feeling bad about ourselves. That's why we need to listen to, bow down and worship at the altar of Navy SEALs while they tell us how we could be just like them, right? And like then you'll be better. But you know what? You might still feel like a piece of shit and be at 9% body fat. How about we work on just loving ourselves? And the way we do that is what I told our first person with the question. Go find safe people and begin revealing the things about you that you don't want anybody to know. And nobody gets freaked out. Nobody goes into shock if they're truly safe people. You're not bad. That was just a dumb thing to do, or that was just an impulsive act, or you just went unconscious for a while, or you just have an addictive gene. And if we can just learn to just love ourselves as we are, to make incremental improvement in how we do things. Because
Yeah.
I've said most things, very few things have ever changed by being hated on. If you hate yourself for being fat, that's a terrible motivation for losing weight.
Right.
But if you love your body and you just want to be healthy and live as long a life as you can, as healthy as you want, if you're loving yourself, you're going to want to take care of yourself. But you won't judge yourself if you still have a little bit of a spare tire or roll around here like I do, or if you could get to the gym a little bit more often than I do. If I can just not judge myself for those things, I'm more likely to love myself in spite of a little bit of a spare tire. I'm still likely to love myself even if I don't go to the gym 5 days a week. And I'm more likely to love myself even if I don't count macros every single day. And if I don't get to bed by 9:30 every night, I can still love myself and I can still do better. I can get to bed
Yeah.
consistently. I can count macros regularly. I can get to the gym regularly from a place of loving myself, not thinking I've got to do this to be better, to be more lovable, to be more likable, to be better thought of, to like myself better. I'm convinced the way we learn to love ourselves better is not through goals or pushing ourselves or self-discipline. I think it's through taking good care of ourselves, is by surrounding ourselves with resources to fill our bucket, like we did on that nonlinear movement practice. That's just loving self-care. We'll probably always struggle with these negative things about ourselves. I mean, I've been doing therapy for over 30 years, not constantly all the time, but I've done a shitload of therapy. And I mentioned this week, I spent from 10 a.m. till 5:30 with a dose of MDMA and a therapist leading me through core wounds of my childhood, sending the adult me, the warrior king prophet me, the strong, hairy, bearded, rugged, yeah, back in the time machine to take care of my young self, my infant self, my 3-year-old self, my 7-year-old, 12-year-old, to come and be there for me at core pain, sticking attachment issue areas in my childhood, right? So I've been doing therapy for over 30 years. And you know what? That was still just a liberating experience that really did make me feel more love and care for myself. And the couple of days since, I've just I've just been loving the hell out of the little boy in me. And so there's things we can do to keep loving ourselves more. And I think, again, from that place of loving ourselves more, it's easier to do better. So let's just keep it simple. Just one thing I'll add. That's one of the reasons, excuse me, I created Integration Nation. I wanted a place that men could go and be vulnerable and talk about their problems and talk about their insecurities and talk about their issues and talk about their shame. And by doing that, we do begin to release those and feel better about ourselves. And then I think we do better in life. And we have better relationships and we take better care of ourselves and we make the world a better place. So that's really why I'm here with you guys. I think this is the best way I know to help men feel better about themselves and do better in their life. There seems to be a core thing here with feelings, and even like that feeling of envy. Envy is such a killer sentiment. It's not a real feeling, but
Mm.
envy basically says that person shouldn't have that. And what happens with envy, it also turns back on you that says, therefore, you shouldn't either. Envy's not a respecter of persons. If that person shouldn't have it, you shouldn't have it. If that person shouldn't, be happy having a wife, well, you can't either. And that's maybe why you don't have the wife and you're not
Mm.
happy. My sense is you've maybe spent your life avoiding feelings, driving yourself to attain so you don't feel. It makes sense to me you would have a whole mixed bag of feelings about having an engagement and moving out from a woman you thought you were going to marry and maybe be with the rest of your life. That I would think you would have a lot of feelings of sadness, of grief, regret, anger. All of those are okay. But going to the gym and so driving yourself, you don't feel them to the degree you get hurt doesn't serve you, or just going and working nonstop till you get burned out, that doesn't serve you. I think what might serve you, and maybe you've been using Timeline and the cafe and maybe some tribe calls to talk about this stuff, which is good. And I'm going to encourage you to give yourself a chunk of time to just feel, to regain your feeling states. Now, this may take you back a long, much further back than leaving your fiance. You've probably been avoiding uncomfortable feelings for a really long time. It can be overwhelming to start dealing with them. And what happens is we men, we usually do it in isolation. We just start keeping all of that stuff in. And then we usually get self-destructive. I Yesterday, went and visited a friend. I've known him from the men's program for maybe 3 years or so, and I love this guy. We've had some practices together. We had good times together. We did peyote together a few months ago. And before I got to Austin, another friend wrote me and said, this other friend's really been in the dumps. Now, without going into detail, well, I'll go in a little detail. Apparently, the whole family just has trauma and addiction and issues, lots of just toxic, dysfunctional stuff in his family. And he's carried a lot of feelings and he's had some major losses. And he moved to Austin and I went and visited him yesterday and we had something to eat and went out and took a long walk and just talked and came back to his house and he played the guitar a little bit and I'm going to see him tomorrow night. We get together a bunch of friends. So I'm going to go to his house and a bunch of friends are going to go over there and we're going to just make dinner and hang out. And he's beating himself up because he spent the last 5 months burning through his savings, hasn't been doing anything. He said he watched a shitload of TV on Netflix, plays his guitar, and been isolating. And I said, sounds like that's exactly what you needed to do. You just needed to do this till you were done doing it. Or just holding up for 5 months and doing nothing productive and burning through his savings. I said, maybe that savings was there exactly for this moment. And I felt better, felt good after spending time with him. I think he did. Like I said, then we found that then when they end up, we were gonna go to a restaurant to eat, this whole group of about a dozen people, but we couldn't get a reservation. So we're going to his house. So I think how cool is that? Here he's holed up in isolation for 5 months, but he's inviting, a dozen buddies over to his house. So I think he's maybe coming through the other side of it. But he had to take the time to do the feeling work. Now, I recommend don't do it in isolation. Get into a men's group. Do it here on the Glover Hood Cafe or on Timeline. Get a coach or a therapist, and but just let yourself feel. When I split with my second wife, we've been married 14 years, and I had let her treat me badly for 14 years. I mean, just abuse me. We had a trauma bonded relationship. And I got out of that relationship and I started going to 12-step groups just to have a men's group to go to. I was going to 3 or 4 a week. And I made my inner circle, my drug, her. I could not talk to her, have contact with her, be around her, call her up. And I would go to these meetings just to have a support system. And I was angry. I was pissed. And I told myself I was going to let myself be angry for as long as I was angry. I thought, if it takes me a couple years to get over being angry, I'm going to be angry until I'm done being angry. I let myself have all those feelings. And lo and behold, around the 2 year mark, I noticed I could go a whole day without thinking about her, good or for bad. I just had to go and be in safe places and put my feelings out there, whatever they were. And, I'm still doing feeling work to this day. I don't know that we ever end doing it. So I think you're in a good place to do the feeling work. Escaping it through work, escaping it through pounding your body, the gym isn't working. Now, it is scary to dip your toe and do the deep dive into doing feelings you've been avoiding all your life. But the truth is, the feelings don't hurt. They don't really hurt us. Now, yeah, they feel what feels like physical pain in our body, but they hurt us more by keeping them in than by letting them out.